Assalamu alaikum and namaste to all. Welcome to Knowledge Webcast. Here with us is Dr. Arthur Shelley. He's the founder and CEO of Intelligent Answers. He's also Director of Knowledge Associates from Australia. He's also lead assessor of KRO, that is Knowledge Ready Organization. He's also he has authored 3 successful books, and there's one upcoming very soon. We will get to know more about Dr. Arthur in this episode. Thank you, Dr. Arthur. So shall I call Arthur? Okay.
Yeah, Arthur is fine.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. And it was indeed a lot of people had asked me to interview you. Based on that demand, I had to send that request to you and get you on board. So it's really good of you that you accepted and come on board. So thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to sharing with you and your members.
Thank you. So my show starts with always I'm keen to understand what has been the journey of the knowledge expert. So what has been your journey in knowledge management and organizational development capability? How did you start your career in knowledge management field? If you could speak a bit about that, I would be really happy to know. Yeah.
It's funny you asked that. About 3 months ago, I was just drawing, and this whole thing of well, people say lifelong learning. I say lifestyle learning, because now it's just built into your lifestyle, right? It's you're on a train and you're doing stuff on a phone, and learning is everything. And I've always had a great love for learning, even as a child. If I was sick, I still wanted to go to school. I just loved learning from a very early age. But formal knowledge management, I mean, it really wasn't a thing until the mid to late 90s. And when knowledge management became a thing, I discovered that, well, now there's a term for, what people like me have been doing for a long time. And I'm sure it's the same with you and some of your listeners, that we just operate this way. It's the way we're wired, and of course, people can go to university and learn how to do it from, the many experts in knowledge management from around the world. But some people were just sort of that way. And so because I was interested in knowledge and learning, I became a scientist. So I was a research scientist for a number of years. From that, I started, I think I was about 24 or 5. I started a consultancy business solving scientific problems for companies. So I was doing that. I worked in a government research institute for a while. Then I had this small business. Then I was asked to come and join a large international organization that's very popular in India called Cadbury. They asked me to come along and look at being an internal scientific manager for them. I worked for them for nearly 20 years, but in a whole range of different roles. And it went from scientific research to quality management to project management. Okay. And then eventually I was their global knowledge director at the end of my career with them about 10 years ago. But in parallel to that, I was starting to get involved in academia and also in knowledge management consultancy as well. Okay. So it's a long story.
It's interesting. No, actually, it is always interesting because one of the important questions when most of the people around me ask is, how do I get into knowledge management? So yeah. There's always a struggle for people who are already into knowledge management profession as to share where do they start. I mean,
Yeah. I will add to that, Santosh. If you're interested in knowledge management, you're already in it. Just ask people more questions, have conversations, join forums like, KM for Dev and SIKM leaders, and, just engage with people. And effectively, you're managing knowledge, you're sharing with other people and they're sharing with you. So it doesn't have to be a formal role. It's a way of being.
Yeah. Truly said. I completely agree to it. And maybe I want to take one question from your last sentence. Don't you think there's a, the formal training and formal knowledge management profession as such is missing at this point of time? Yes, I do agree. There are certain, qualifications in terms of MSc and and other MBAs. Again, it's the curriculum is just one syllabus. I mean, maybe few papers, um, but I don't think like we have yet formed the as in finance or accounts. You have a whole curriculum of bodies of qualification. So where do you stand and how do you see this going forward? I mean,
It's a really great question. Thank you. It's something that I feel quite strong about. I wrote an article on LinkedIn 2 or 3 years ago now, saying it was ironic that we, the people who talk about sharing and building stuff together and collaborating, are the most disconnected profession on the planet. There's a bunch of really skillful knowledge experts around the world, right? They're and they do talk to each other, but there's no formal professional group. Like a PMI is a global group of professionals. CILIP in the UK are doing a pretty good job with building a community of knowledge professionals. There are more localized things like SIKM leaders and KM for Dev are sort of knowledge professionals interacting and sharing with each other, fairly well. But even, the national bodies are not that well connected. So I proposed a couple of years ago, why don't we have a global knowledge professional society? And I put stuff up there and some people joined that. But for the numbers of people that we've got involved, it's nowhere near as big a group as it could be. And that group we haven't formalized, but we're just talking about the concept. But I would love to see a knowledge professional society, where people are not just talking and sharing with each other, but, providing role models and support for people who are interested in KM, students, to help them develop through repositories, for example.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. Indeed, I have one more question associated with it. When it comes to innovation management, or when it comes to risk management, those have taken much stronger position in industry, and there's more pull from the industry, right? And also governments and nations are also looking at it very serious note. I mean, they have started some programs around that. But when it comes to knowledge management, maybe there's a little more lack of interest in it. How do you see this? I mean, like.
It's a difficult thing, right? Because if you think about it, knowledge is one of the key assets in modern society. If you want competitive advantage, you need knowledge that other people don't have. If you want to drive your innovation, you need to create new knowledge and new insights about things that may not even have been invented yet. So there's a huge capital value associated with knowledge, but knowledge itself exists in your head. So it's hard to, knowledge is different to information. They're related, they're good cousins, but the knowledge is in people's heads, right? And the insights and the new knowledge and the innovation comes from when people sit and have a conversation, and I share my knowledge with you, and somebody else asks a naive question, somebody else comes in, but in India they do it this way. It's that exchange of knowledge that drives innovation, that drives performance. So it has huge tangible value, but the knowledge itself can't be measured in a tangible way. So, and this is why people are reluctant, particularly commercial industries, are reluctant to share their knowledge because it is the primary source of their advantage.
Intellectual property, of course.
Yeah.
Well, that is true. To a certain degree, I mean, that has to be protected. Otherwise, the whole competitiveness would be drained, and the whole business model would get evaporated in fraction of seconds, right? So that is fair enough. But now coming back to your journey in terms of you have been associated with the Knowledge Ready organization, KRO, Now I see, since we are talking about the knowledge body, we do not have academic, but now I see there are two or three things which are primarily people have kind of largely accepted, or still, there's some debate on, okay, there's one side, there's a KRO, then there's, ISO, knowledge management system standards. Of course, we had the MIC or MAKE award for quite a long time, which
Yep.
is really good, right? So now with
Yep.
all three important, key aspect which has come out and is in people have accepted in various forms to some certain degrees. How do you see their relationship?
Yeah, I see them as potentially very strong collaborators. I mean, I'm familiar with Make and then Mike. I mean, Rory Chase is who created those in the first place in late 90s or early 2000s, has now retired. He let it out to open source. And I know in India, the Make Awards were, very popular and sought after. To me, these are all just different ways. In KRO or ISO, they're all different ways to leverage knowledge in order to elevate your performance. They're not, in my mind, they're not competitors. They're, different ways. I mean, you can choose to get from home to work driving a Tata or a Toyota or a Mercedes. They're all just ways of getting to where you want to go. Or you can catch the train, or you can walk, or you can ride a bicycle, and they're all different ways that get you from A to B. And depending on your own experiences, your own context, your own situations, all of these can be a good way for you to go there. And there are many good books as well, Nick Milton and Patrick Lamb's book on, the Knowledge Manager's Handbook, and, Stephanie Barnes's work. And I'm sure you'll talk to a lot of these people in time. There are a lot of really good people who have shared really good ideas to get you to elevate your performance using knowledge. They're collaborative cousins, but sometimes people treat them as, commercial objects, and that taints the waters a little bit, but that's inevitable. Where there's knowledge, there's power, right? And some people want to use that power for their own selves. But I say, knowledge is power is only half the story. Knowledge is powerful when socialized and shared, and when we do that, it doesn't matter which technique we use, as long as we go there.
Perfect, perfect. I do agree. I mean, knowledge is as good as not utilized is of no knowledge, and knowledge with purpose and utilized and shared is what is the real purpose of in this world, right? So,
Yeah.
uh,
But people need to make a living, right? I mean, if you've got expertise and you can create huge value for some organization or a person through mentoring, that's a form of, knowledge development as well, then you have to make a choice. I tend to take the position that if I'm helping someone and they're getting huge value from it, then of course, then I'm creating value for them. Well, let's share, I'm sharing knowledge, so we share in that value. You should never charge someone more money than the value that you create for them. But equally, they should not to expect to tap into your knowledge and expertise and get huge benefit from it, but give you nothing back. So this whole thing of reciprocity is an important part. I do pro bono work, I do free work, and I have some clients that I get paid for, but it's all about sharing knowledge.
no, indeed, I think, in fact, I had a different question, but this, since you mentioned this particular, work and, my question here is, similar to this. I mean, whether you take, one of the challenge what I see from the knowledge management as a group or thing, maybe that commercialization, or rather, if I have to take a different analogy, let's say if Microsoft or any Apple has a product, they have a huge, budget to market and, people to spread the message, whole the global communication media, which works well to get the product and the features into it. So, don't you think that is something which is lacking today? To when we're talking about knowledge management as a theme and as a principles, that united front and united effort, I see it's kind of at least I see from my experience where I am. Maybe it may not be true, but what is your take? Because knowledge management, it's not an philanthropy. Knowledge management, if you're doing within business company, it's a profit-oriented company. If you're working, it's a business you're doing by
Yeah, yeah.
creating value. This is how I see. I mean, what is your take on two, three points here? What do you kind of?
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story, and then come back to that point in a more serious way. But I remember when I was a global knowledge director for Cadbury, there was a big restructure going on, and every part of the business was being challenged. And one of the senior finance people said to me, and they had the senior HR person there as well, and they're saying, so, well, you cost us a lot of money, so how do we, why do we keep you here? I mean, if you're costing more money than what you generated, then why would we bother? We're a business. We have to get return on investment on everything we do. I said, I completely agree with that. And by the way, here are 6 success stories of how our knowledge team has facilitated huge business and profitability and savings in the business. Here's a story of how we added $20 million per year in profitability. Here's another story that we've, taken $60 million out of savings. And by the way, those things are many times what you pay for me and my team costs. And then I said, so where's your justification for HR and finance? How do you justify your existence to the business? And I said, have you got stories that you can tell that actually show that you generate far more value than you cost? But of course, those people were much more senior than me. So I was told to shut up and go back to my box, right? But I wasn't made redundant at that point in time. So, but more seriously, so it is good to have provocative questions and, to be proud of what you do and to stand your ground, even if senior people are, pushing you around. Okay, you don't have to push back like that, but you can be assertive and say, well, actually, here's how we create value, and tell the story, educate them. If they're ignorant or just being provocative, just maintain your professionalism, but show that you are worthwhile, because anyone that's doing good knowledge work is worthwhile. On the return on investment, I do actually agree with what, those HR and finance people are saying. Every part in a business needs to earn its own. And even in a not-for-profit, you even though you're not making profit, you're consuming resources in order to generate value. Principles of KM, if you're using knowledge to make more informed decisions, then you're doing things more efficiently or more effectively or faster, or, in a way that is more aligned with what your stakeholders need. So you're adding value into that business. Now, how you measure that added value in a commercial business is money, profit. But in a not-for-profit, you may be saving lives. You may be increasing well-being of people in some village in India or Africa, or even helping in a developed country society, to elevate the performance of a local council in the way that they do their business. That's good for everyone, right? So return on investment does need to be justified. Sometimes it's an intangible measure. We have saved, these people, or these people are much happier, or they're less stressed, or we've reduced bullying in the environment because of an awareness campaign. So there are many ways to measure these things, but you do have to create more value than what you consume. Otherwise, like any part of any business or any not-for-profit or any part of society, you have to challenge whether it's worth investing in.
Indeed. Sure. Now, there's something which is really interesting about some of the themes which you have been, I try to, spend some time and read about stuff, what you've done. I like the word creative friction, provocative conversation. Do you mind we use it for, there are certain theme which I want to use this
Sure.
to kind of, go around and see, what happens. And also, this also gives a flavor of, for people who watches this, how this could be a creative process, but in a,
Yeah.
being a devil's advocate or, having this creative friction, right? So I will
Yep.
come back again to the KRO and standards, a bit of, some of these areas are really new to people, and and a lot of questions in the mind. So I am the devil's advocate and will try to use your, creative friction conversation mode. So my first question again in this particular, segment is, how do you see a KRO? How different is KRO and standard? Yeah. It would be
Yep. Okay. That's a good question. In fact, just 2 days ago, Moira Levy, who was the chairman of the ISO KM committee, and I were having an exchange about, shouldn't we have one or the other and not both? And I said, no, I actually believe there's room for both, because what ISO 30401 is a requirement standard. It says these are the things that you must have in order for us to certify that you are doing KM to a high standard, in the international eyes. And it's a specification, right? So it says you need to have these elements in place, and you need to demonstrate that you are doing these things, and you need to demonstrate that this is enabling you to improve your business. Continuous improvement is one of the elements. So ISO is about what it is that you need to have in place.
Okay.
But it doesn't tell you how to get there or how to do it, right? And that's deliberate, because, every organization has a different context. There are many ways to get from A to B, as we said before. There are ways that, you've got to make that journey to knowledge maturity in a way that your organization can afford. Some organizations don't have a knowledge manager. They just have communities of practice who are doing good stuff, and that's enabling them to move forward. Other organizations have big knowledge teams that are, doing lots and lots of work, and they're interacting with stakeholders all around the world. So the way that they get there is different to the way that a small startup business would do KM. So what KRO does is it asks a series of 60 questions that are broken down into 6 categories. And each of those questions can be interpreted within the context and the language of that particular business. So KRO is like a mentoring program. It's a way of saying, well, are we thinking about what it is that we're doing? And will that enable us to, to become more mature and to become more connected across all of these things that involve knowledge in an organization, that enable us? And maybe one day, if we do all of these things and we keep answering these questions better and better over time, we can become compliant to ISO. Now, whether or not we decide to get certified or not is another question. But just getting to the standard of ISO is a good thing. It will make your business better. Then do you want to be recognized as achieving that standard? Well, go and ask an auditor to come in and see if they think that you are from an external perspective. So they're siblings.